Everyone for stopping by and welcome to today's webinar, Military Mythbusters, What Not to Do When Working with Military Clients with MAPS coach, Karina Gafford. I'll make this short and sweet. Please note this meeting is being recorded and I'll share the link in the chat momentarily to the MAPS YouTube channel where the recording will be available within 24 hours. Currently, everyone is on mute. However, Karina does value group participation, so we ask if you have any questions for her, please type them into the chat box. Following the meeting, if you have any questions about today's call or any other MAPS coaching programs, please feel free to email us at fasttrack, FASTRACK @kw.com. That's all for me, Karina. The floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Good afternoon. Happy, it's Thursday, right? Happy Thursday, everybody. Can you guys see my screen okay? Should say Mythbusters and what not to do when working with military clients. Yep. Thank you, Jennifer. Appreciate it. So my name is Karina Gafford. I am a military now veteran spouse down in San Antonio. I have a team of military spouse and veteran realtors. We have a top 1% team with Keller Williams, and I'm also a MAP coach. So I teach the MAPS Fast Track class, Building a Sustainable Military Business. Is anyone on today in the class? Nope. Got a whole bunch of new folks today.
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, Kelly, thank you. Is there anything you could share about the class that we're currently taking and working with the KW military program?
I think it's eye-opening and everyone should consider taking it. It will give you the tools that you need to be successful with our military.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing, Kelly. And Kelly's been doing a phenomenal job with putting into place some of the tactical tips and strategies that we're working on each week with how to help grow your military business. That said, today's topic is myths and what not to do when working with military clients. So I see you guys are all on mute. You're welcome, unless you've got yapping dogs in the background, which I'm hoping that mine do not. I have two really loud Australian Shepherd puppies. But if you do not have yapping puppies, or you're not sitting in a call center room at your brokerage, please feel free to come off mute. I'd love to hear how many of you guys work with military clients right now.
I do.
Yes, awesome. I see hands up. Phenomenal. How many of you guys have worked with at least one military client in the last year? Show of hands, type me in the chat, whatever works for you guys. I see a bunch of thumbs up. Me. Phenomenal. How many of you worked with at least 5 military clients in the last year? Oh, I see it. Not yet. Awesome. Just got my first one. Woo! Go Nikki. Anyone else? 5, we do. Military veterans, families too. Awesome, Susan. Anybody work with 10 military clients in the last year? Chandra is a military, I hope I said your name correctly, military spouse.
You did, thank you.
Phenomenal. I gave it a shot there. I appreciate it. So anyone work with 10 military clients in the last year? Put 10 in the chat if you did, or shout it out. Brand new, but I am Rebecca. Way to go, Rebecca. I love the enthusiasm and focus. So how many of you want to work with at least 10 military clients in the next year? Oahu, Olivia, that'll be a great place to work with at least like a dozen military clients out there. I know we've very excited referrals. That's an awesome place. I wish we were stationed there. So my husband retired from the Air Force with PCS 7 times. With the Air Force. During his career, I worked with a company called Military by Owner, one of the country's largest marketing and real estate marketing and advertising companies for the military community. And so I had a great opportunity to kind of get some good experience working with agents all across the country during that time. I know Oahu is amazing for agents. We've sent quite a few referrals out there. Our clients love it too. Class keeps freezing up. Yes, Hutch, this will be a recording as well. Awesome. Okay, All right, so it sounds like everybody's got some great goals. We've got some military folks in the class. We've got some military spouses, which is amazing. We've got most folks have worked with at least one military client, and a lot of folks who would love to work with more military clients, which is great because they are the best clients in the world to serve. So nothing better than serving those who serve. Do we have any military brats in the class? Yes. Yes. Anyone a military mama or dad?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. I love
Yes.
working with and your team lead as well. Phenomenal. Anyone who has an extended family member, so potentially an aunt, an uncle, a grandparent, a nephew, a niece in the military who wants to learn because of their experience working with the military community, they want to learn and understand more about how to work with that community. Yes. I love that, Bobby. Okay. It's so inspiring when you see somebody in your family join the military. It brings so much out of you that you want to then give back because you see how much they serve. Our list. I love you guys. All right. Zenobia. Did I say that correctly? That is a really, really cool name.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Okay, so what we're gonna do today, since everybody is super military spouse, stepchildren, other family member. Okay, so you've got a lot to give back there. So I love everybody's heart. So when we talk about KW military, when we talk about working with military clients, you don't have to be a veteran or a military spouse to work with military clients. You do have to have a heart and a passion for working with the military community. They have very unique home buying and selling needs. And so one of the goals of MAPS and the KW military program is to help bring that education to more agents. And we're going to talk a little more about how huge of a market it is, how great an opportunity it is for you as an agent. We've got Navy spouse, we've got Navy, so we've got folks who've served here as well. Thank you guys for your service. We want to talk about how much of an opportunity it is and how much education is required in order to make sure that we are serving these clients at the highest possible level because of their very unique needs. So we're going to start with a couple of fun kind of myths and what not to do's, and then we'll get into how it relates to home buying. And again, this is going to be recorded. You guys will get a copy of this recording after. So if there's somebody else that you want to share it with, please do. We want to spread as much of this information as possible. So it's one of my favorites. You knew what you were getting into when you married a service member. This is my cringe face. So there is nothing that can hurt a military spouse's feelings more than when they are distressed and when they are learning how to be a military spouse than hearing this line. Anyone here a military spouse has ever heard this line before? Yes, no, maybe? Shout it out, hands up, all too often, Olivia, Angela. Yes, it can be, Diana, Chandra. Okay, I am not alone here. It can be so overwhelming at first. You go from being a normal person one day, there's no boot camp for being a military spouse. You go from being a normal person one day to being escorted on base to a guard gated entry to have an ID made. And all of a sudden, you go from being an independent person to a dependent. And that word just hurt my soul just a little bit right off the bat. What do you mean dependent? I have a job. So there's a really funny article, and I'm going to share some links with you guys. And if you don't grab them, if you go open your chat box and you see the little ellipses next to the three dots next to the smiley face, you can actually save the chat from this conversation after, because I'll have some different links that I'm going to share with you guys so that you can have them. And there is an article, and it's by from Military Spouse Magazine, and there is a writer. Her name is Erin Whitehead. She's been a writer for quite a while. When are we going to share the link to the military class in July? Graham or Jenna, wouldn't you guys mind sharing that for Walter? Enable live transcription. Yes. Okay, there we go. All right, funny article for you guys to read later. Erin is a great writer. I've been reading her stuff for probably over a decade here on you know what you're getting into. because it is hard when you become a military spouse. There are traditions, protocol, and rules. So traditions could be ceremonies. Some of the ceremonies are your promotions, change of commands, hail and farewells, and there's different protocol for all of those. For other protocols, when you go to a movie theater as a, on a base, you have to stand for the national anthem. It is expected that you will right away. It was something that was very new to me. When I became a military spouse, I was not a U.S. citizen, so it was nothing I'd ever experienced before. You can't wear jeans to dinner at the club on base. Also something I thought, small things, but they add up. You have armed guards checking your car for, weapons, things of that nature. When you want to go to the grocery store on base, any other protocol, traditions, anything else anyone wants to shout out, share something a little bit about life as a military spouse or moving on base for the first time? Anyone? Anything fun? Anything interesting or different that you experienced? OPSEC, yes. Inspections, the home inspections. After moving out of a Marine base, yes, I feel you there.
Well, just getting the rigmarole of just getting an ID card, right? You are beholden to your parent or your spouse. Like, I went to the commissary. I didn't realize, because of COVID and everything, that my ID had expired, right? And he took it right from me at the gate. And thank God I had my mom in the car, because she had her dependent, because we were on our way to the commissary. So then I had to get in touch with my husband and say, well, they confiscated my ID card, which is also my health insurance card. And so he had to schedule out my appointment. It took him 2 months. So here I am without an ID card for 2 months, trying to get one, because I'm at the mercy of it took away my independence. I know that doesn't sound, but do you get what I'm saying?
Yes, it is. It's just such a different experience for life. I hear lack of privacy for someone else has gone through this here, lack of privacy for medical records. It's hard. Your ID card is everything. I have lost mine twice. I will not say that is one of my areas of strength. Keys, wallet, phone, ID cards. So becoming a military spouse is very challenging for somebody who's not very good at keeping a control of where her things are. So it was a big life adjustment right there. So
was anyone a military spouse back in like 2001 to 2008?
Was I? Yes.
Oh, anybody, I guess, because that had its own challenges in itself. I mean, you have COVID now, but I mean, shoot, look at everything we went through back in that time frame.
Oh yeah,
insane.
It was rapid deployments, high ops tempo. My husband went through 6 months on, 6 month off rotations for 4 years going. So for anyone who is not military, it's go deployment, come back, literally pick up at the airport, drive straight to base for in-processing, check it. Like there's no welcome home. Yay!
Dude, you got to go to the airport. We had to go to, it was at Fort Lewis and McCord. We had to go to McCord and pick them up. We never had an airport. It blew my mind when I saw some people that got to go to the airport to pick their spouses up. We went straight on to McCord and got them straight from the,
oh, wow.
From the, well, whatever. Yeah.
That's
on
awesome.
9/11, my husband was flying with the AWACS, and he was supposed to be going on a training sortie. Next thing I know, he's gone. And I did not hear back from him for a week. I had no idea where he was at. He was flying somewhere on an AWACS plane in this country, and I had no idea when he was coming home or what was going on.
Yeah,
mine was an Army Ranger, and they swooped him up. It was right after 9/11. They swooped him up, and he disappeared for 2 months because he was a special forces, and they were somewhere they weren't supposed to be, and they weren't allowed to call us. 2 months. I didn't know if he was dead or alive, and they wouldn't tell us anyway.
Very stressful.
You've been there.
They were over there before they declared war. So I mean, that whole time frame. I mean, I know COVID was tough and everything else, but things are so much more streamlined on post now. Thank goodness, and VA is a lot more streamlined than what it used to be. But if you get families that were through that time, I mean, that's a whole nother level of trauma, and you just got to be really loving with them.
It is. And now what we're seeing is a lot of those folks are retiring, and now they're dealing with what they've gone through. And that really also impacts everything from where in a neighborhood that they can live, what neighborhoods they can live in, access to VA clinics, how you sit, how you arrange a room when you go into a something as simple as doing new construction, where you're sitting down with the builder rep. How do you make sure then that your veteran client does not have his back to the door with, and how do you do that with
Absolutely.
grace so that they feel comfortable and know that you've got their back? And so there's so much, and I really appreciate you guys sharing. And I'm super excited that we have this level of community that's building now in Keller Williams, because there's so many agents that do have these experiences. And I'm sure Kelly could share with you guys too, in service animal accommodations and showings. Oh, Amy's on here too. Hello, Amy. And so Amy and Kelly can share with you as well that we have so many folks in the class that we're taking right now that are sharing these experiences too. So it's good to have that level of community. When it comes to time apart for military spouses, we're talking TDYs, so temporary assignments, deployments, they miss births, birthdays, holidays. Time apart is really hard, and the reconnection can be even harder. So something that's really important if you're working with military clients and your active duty families, you want to make sure that you have resources to share with them. And I'll share some of them as well. You know, what resources do you have for those clients? You know, do you have connections with base, other military spouse clients that you might have worked with, or other military spouses in the area? Having a list of resources to share with them, to DoD services like Military One Source, which has therapy available and on-call services. One of my clients, Bernice Castillo, runs the Military Spouse Advocacy Network, and that helps newer military spouses kind of transition into the military lifestyle. Because again, as I mentioned, there's no boot camp. Blue Star Families is another great one. And for a lot of military spouses, there's separation from family and friends. And it's really hard to prepare for that. Most military spouses marry very young. It's really hard I had just turned 23. It's really hard to conceptualize what that will look like when you become a military spouse, because it's exciting. You're moving, you're starting the next chapter in your life, but you're leaving behind all your family, your friends, your traditional social support network. Your service member can go onto base and plug into that new community right away. You don't necessarily know anybody in that area. And so one of the things we talk about in the class is being the first friend for that active duty family that's moving into your new community. There was a report from Blue Star Families, which is a great, they have a great newsletter to follow if you want to be more aware of what's going on in the military community. They issue great reports. And the report a few years back showed that over 50% of, somebody mentioned their audio is out. I enabled closed captioning. So over 50% of military spouses are on antidepressants. So that is huge. That is disproportionately much higher percentage of the military spouse community. There's also the career issues. So over 28% of military spouses are unemployed or underemployed. And a big part of that is, they're living overseas. They can't get employment when they're in potentially Guam or Japan or Germany or the United Kingdom. They're functioning as solo parents. So another great thing that you can do to be a resource as a military, do federal agents fall in this category, DHS? That is a good question, Claudia. I will have to get back to you on that, so I'll save the chat after. For career paths, so something that you can do to be a resource then to your clients is to have a list of places where they can apply for employment, or potentially connect them with your market center. Does your market center have a need for remote employment, transaction coordination, administrative positions for these military spouses? Can you help get them licensed through K-Score and have them become a showing agent and learn how to become a realtor so they can have a new career path that they can potentially then go connect with another team at their next duty station as well and do the same? How can you help them? How can you help connect them and get them started in a career path? That's another way to plug into community. So I have a little list here for you guys. Chamber of Commerce, hiring our heroes for spouses is another great one. MySeco through Military One Source is another really good one too. But the biggest thing that you can do to support, and I'm putting it in chat for you guys, there you go. So the biggest thing that you can really do for those military spouses is connect, which is exactly what you're doing through your database management anyway, your DTD2s, you're calling, you're checking in, listening. If you see something on social media, if you're following them, bring food. If they're having a baby and they're all by themselves and their spouse is deployed or on temporary assignment. Another one, I could never do what you do. So that one is tough. And, as we say and, not but, how can you frame this more positively? So I'm bringing this one up because it's something that I remember sitting in a closing in my first year in real estate. And I remember that the escrow officer sitting across from my military family who are exhausted. They're moving, they got last minute notification of orders. We got their house on the market. They packed that thing up to get it ready, sell. They're moving several states away. They're so tired. And the title officer sat across from them and said, I could never do what you do. How do you think that military family feels when they hear that? Shout it out.
Annoyed.
A little bit.
I think alone. They feel alone.
Someone a little bit alone. Yeah. Someone has a hand up. Kent, what you got? Isolated, Jenna. Kent. Going once, going twice, Kent. All right, shout it out if you've got it. There's no benefit really to the statement, I can never do what you do, because all it's really doing is creating separation and not greater connection with that family. So some of the more positive ways, because I wrote down a few that you could say instead to create that connection instead of alienation are, wow, it must be so amazing to get to live in so many different locations and experience so many different cultures. Because it is, it's one of the coolest things about being a military family. Another, you must get to meet so many interesting people, which is very true. The military represents a cross-section of the entire US population. You really do get to meet people that you might never otherwise have encountered. So I met some of the most fascinating, interesting people through all of our duty stations and our moves and all the spouses clubs, like some of the most creative and interesting people, resilient. Another one might be, I imagine you were phenomenally organized at packing from all those cross-country moves. These are all positive ways to reframe it, because what else could you say? How else could you respond to, I could never do what you do? You don't want to put that military spouse in a position where they are alienated. You made them feel odd, uncomfortable. They are other than what you are. There's no community, there's no connection. And they might be put in a situation that they say, well, it's a good thing that you aren't, then. That is not going to create that kind of connection. They'll help you work with that client, have that client have a great experience with you, and want them to, be grateful and send you more clients to work with in the future. So bonus tip, if you work with title, attorneys, lenders, inspectors, anybody else who's going to work with that military family, I would definitely share a couple of these tips with them as well, because it's going to help them have a better connection with the client, and it's going to make you look like a rock star, because now you're working with people who really understand and can connect with military families rather than alienating them. So if none of those resonate with you, another way that you could say it is, how do you handle the stresses that come with your military lifestyle, and how can I help?
Yep.
So those are just some ways to create better connection for you. All right, so I'm gonna have myth or not. I want to hear you guys answer. Very few military members purchase a home. What you got?
Myth.
Myth? Not?
Myth.
Anyone have any idea what percentage of the market? Our military members who buy a
30?
home,
25%.
20%, 30, 1 in 5. Joe, you've been reading my notes. Delisa, Delisa, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yes. All right. Aha. Am I saying that correct? Joe, you do take my class. All right, you guys are awesome. So if you take my class or any of my classes, you know, I'm a data nerd. I love to read reports. I love to look at statistics because it helps me then understand macro so that we can understand the micro in our communities. 2% of all homes purchased nationwide are by an active duty member with a VA loan. 17% are purchased by veterans. So roughly 1 in 5 is, as Joe mentioned, because I think I repeat that probably about 50 times during our class. So Joint Base San Antonio, for instance, we've got multiple installations here. We've got Lackland, Randolph, Fort Sam, Camp Bullis. So we've got a constant stream of inbound and outbound folks processing. The market is probably closer to about 40% here for military. We've got a pretty healthy mix then of military home buyers who need guidance. They need hand holding. We've got folks coming in then for repeat rotations or repeat tours here. We have folks who are looking to grow their wealth which we'll talk about a little more, as they are buying houses at each duty station. That's something that my husband and I did, and it worked out really well for us. The home price here is pretty affordable for military folks too. Lenders love our clients. Average credit score is above 720. And military clients are great to work with for home buying, because you tell them, here's the SOPs, or here's the standard operating procedures for buying a home. Here are the things that we need. You need your DD 214. You need your LES statements, or here's the list of docs. Get them in to your lender. Boom, they're done. They're pre-approved. It's pretty fast. So the critical thing to do with these military clients when they're PCSing in, especially, is that you want to make sure that you have an exit strategy in place with your client. Does anyone know what I mean by an exit strategy for a home? No? Oh, I see some fun faces. Amy, you make the best faces.
Is it depending on if they, number one, can't buy the house because something changes in their orders, or is it something if they get what's it called? If they get PCSed earlier than expected and you have to sell their house faster than expected?
That is a great one. So the first one we definitely can deal with a VA loan. The second one, yeah, if Uncle Sam says 6 months after they close on the house, time to jump, and we're going to move several states away, and now they own a home that they're not necessarily in a position to sell, do they know how much they can rent that property out for, and will they be able to afford it? So talking to your clients about the very likely potential that they might be a reluctant landlord, and how are they preparing for that right up front before they go under contract, and that is a possibility for them. We always run a rental analysis for our clients with the CMA before we go under contract on a property, so they know, okay, how quickly am I likely to rent this house out for? How much rent am I likely to get? What's my mortgage payment going to be? Can I look at the two? Can I make this work if I need to, even without calculating in any appreciation for rent? So you want to then, when they're buying, is there a specific for military members? I don't understand your question, Claudia. I'm sorry. This acronym, I don't know. But if you read it out, I will read it. And so the other part is how can they leverage their VA benefit? So military clients have a VA benefit. They can secure a home with 0 down payment. They have no PMI. They have a 30-year fixed interest rate. They're in a great position to look at a rental prop analysis. I do a rental prop analysis. Yes. Is there a specific one for military? I'll look back for your question in a second. So they are able to leverage their VA benefits. So you find that military active duty military members typically buy homes earlier than their civilian counterparts. And if you can teach your client how to build wealth, how to leverage that VA benefit the first time, if they rent the property out, connect them with a military expert agent, potentially someone here in this class, or if you go and you take the MAPS military class as well. Now you've got somebody who you know can take care of that client, and that they can buy another house and leverage their VA bonus entitlement, which you know is you want to make sure you're working with a good VA lender for that, but that they can leverage their VA bonus entitlement to buy another property at their next duty station, also convert that to a rental, and now that client, when they eventually do PCS back to the area, because many military folks go back and forth between several different duty stations, so there's a strong likelihood that they'll end up back at in your neck of the woods again. And if they don't, you know, and you keep in good contact and you've taken good care of that client, that's a future listing for you as well. And there's nothing more amazing than your client saying, hey, I'm retiring, we want to sell that property. They're renting it, they've got massive amounts of equity from that and other rental properties that they've had, and now they can go buy their forever home. What a great opportunity to be able to do when you retire. So there's no military in my market. Who here does not live anywhere near a military installation? Okay, Kent, Bethany, Jose, anyone else? Amy, you're about an hour to 90 minutes. So what happens if you do not live by a military base, heavy guard state, an hour and a half away? So if you don't live by a military base, it does not mean that you are not necessarily working with military clients, veterans all the way. So remember the two statistics that I shared earlier, 2% active duty buying homes, 17% are veterans. The average VA home buyer is, any idea what age group they're in? Someone using their VA home, what's the average age group?
I'd say the late 30s.
Late 30s, 40s, 50 to 60. Any other guesses? 35? Mid 30s. The average VA home buyer is in their late 40s.
Oh.
So that means that the veterans in your community are buying homes, they're leveraging their VA benefits, and you may not have any idea that they've ever served because they might have separated from the military 10, 15, 20 years ago. They've grown their hair out, you know, they act like civilians. Now maybe they want to sleep in until 8 o'clock in the morning. So even if you're working with a buyer, even if you're just working with a buyer, ask them, any buyer that you work with, let me rephrase that. Any buyer that you're working with, always ask them if they've served. They might have served from age 18 to 22, and they're now in their late 40s. And it might not be something that resonates with them enough to speak to on a regular basis. Rockwall County has the largest veteran community in Texas per capita. I did not know that. That is a good factoid. Thank you. And so, you know, they might not know that they have access to a zero down loan as well. And now you've asked them this question that other agents maybe have not, maybe even the lender did not as well. And you've just become their home buying hero because you've asked them this question. And it sounds crazy. And yet I can't even remember how many folks in the class that we're doing through MAPS right now, they're veteran clients or veteran agents who said that one of the reasons that they became a real estate agent, or one of the motivating factors for them, was when they found out about the VA loan, which was not when they were buying the house, because the realtors that they worked with and the loan officers that they worked with didn't know to ask, have you ever served? And they never talked to them about their VA benefit as well. So it's such a great way to hugely benefit the veterans in your community through education. It's great for posting, for teaching classes. Find a VA loan officer in your community. Who can you teach classes with? How can you reach out to the veterans in your community? And you'll know there's a lot of veterans in your community, especially if there's a VA clinic. If you don't know if there's a VA clinic in your area, VA hospital, that's your Google homework for tonight, guys. So according to the Housing Finance Policy Center, I said I like reading reports and super nerding out on those. Veterans make up 7.2% of the population as of about 2 years ago, and for a total of about 18 million people. So the active duty population has slowed from, it was about 2 million in the 1980s, and now it's just a little bit over 1.2 million as of a year or two ago. But as a whole, veterans have higher homeownership rates and higher incomes than the general population. So does anyone know what the, actually I'll get to that on another slide. So 78% of veteran households are homeowners. That is a huge, huge percentage of the population, 14% more than the general population, which is 18. Oh, I can't do public math right now. 64% of the general population are homeowners. 78% of veterans are homeowners. So it's a huge percentage. Active duty members, it's a little lower than the general population, but it's still pretty high. Anyone know what percentage of active duty families own a home? Any guesses? 20%. Thank you, Kelly. Tennille, 85%. Anyone else? And you can shout it out too. Any other guesses? 33, 43%. Pretty close. 17. Oh, Zenobia, you were super close at 45. 43%. So about two in every 5 military families own, active duty military families own a home. And there's and this percentage, I can't remember. I believe it's 1 in 3 of those own more than one home. But that one, don't quote me on that one because I need to look that up. Okay, now, if you've worked with a military client and you have submitted as a buyer agent on a seller or on a listing in the last year, you probably heard, we can't accept that VA loan. I'm sorry, that loan is just not strong. Myth or not, guys, VA buyers don't have any money. Myth. All right. So while and you guys are awesome. So they while military families, while active duty, leverage zero down loans, it may seem like they have no money, but the truth is but it's not quite the truth. So over half, it's over half of the active duty population, when they're using their VA benefit, they do not put any money down. That is correct. But the median household income for active duty as of 2 years ago from the Housing Finance Policy Center is over $100,000 per year. So the median for veterans is just a slight bit lower at $95,000. And the median household income in that same study for the general population was $87,000. So on average, active duty families earn slightly higher than the median household income for the US. Dispelling the myth. Yes, that is why we're doing these classes, so we can spread the word. So spread the word, share it. Anytime you see these classes, please share with your fellow agents as well, because then it helps us when we're representing military clients on the buy side, when we're working with trying to help them secure homes.
In our area, we have a lot of veterans, and I have heard so many times the other realtors and even loan officers discouraging them from using their VA benefits.
Oh, that hurts my heart. There's so many. If only folks knew these statistics, they would know how strong and how well qualified service members, military families, veterans are when they're purchasing homes. So on average, military client who's applying for a loan has a credit score above 720. Average person applying with a conventional loan is about 10 points lower than that. So many military spouses are actually contributing financially to their family's bottom line. The problem is that income is not used when qualifying for a home, because if they had a job at a previous duty station, now they're moving, they don't have a remote position, they can't use that income to qualify. Or if they're 1099s and they don't have 2 years in the same position, they can't use it to qualify when they're moving to their next duty station. So it impacts then their home buying power, because they're just relying on the service member's income. So even though maybe they're buying a $300,000 house. If they could have leveraged the military spouse's income, maybe they could have bought a $450,000 house. And just because they're not necessarily putting money down doesn't mean that they don't have it. Let me see. Okay. It is a benefit that's been provided for selfless service. It is a well-earned benefit. So military families get free housing, myth or not.
Myth.
Base housing. Is base housing free?
Base housing's crap.
Has anyone lived in base housing?
I'm currently in
Yes.
housing, waiting for a home to be built, and I cannot wait to get out of this.
And it's not technically free because if you live off post, they give you a rental income. Well, at least they used to.
Yes, base housing. So we got really lucky when we lived on Quantico. They had just redone the houses there. They were over 100 years old. That if anyone's been to Quantico, like behind the gym, the historic like 100-plus-year-old townhomes that they're like 4 levels high, and if you leave something in the master bedroom on the top floor and you're in the garage, which seems to be dug under the ground, it's a heck of a hike back upstairs to get your purse, keys, all the things that I forget on a regular basis, which I know from experience. But yeah, we've moved so many folks out of base housing in this area because there's mold issues. There's so many problems with some of the base housing here. A lot of it is privatized, so there's different companies that are managing the properties on 50-year leases as well. Now, while free housing sounds lovely, military members actually receive something called BAH, which is a basic allowance for housing, functions as a cost of living adjustment. So while you might have a basic pay of, for instance, $4,000 a month, so $48,000 a year is your base pay, you then also receive the BAH, basic allowance for housing, as a COLA. So it differs wildly based on area. And I want to show you guys how this works in case you've never used a BAH calculator before. So I'm going to switch my screen that I'm sharing with you guys. Here we go. Can you see BAH calculator? And I'm going to share this link with you guys in chat as well, so that you have it for in future. Where's the chat box? Boom. Oh, thanks, Jenna. Beat me to it. Okay, so the first one I'm going to do, if you haven't seen this before, we're going to look at the year. You can look at the historic year so you can see how it's changed year over year in your area. And I'm going to look at the duty zip code. So I'm going to look at 78245. No, I have number lock. 78245, which is near Lackland Air Force Base. So right by where we are. And I'm going to go to E6. So we work with a lot of folks who are E6s just based on the duty station here. And so with dependents means either with one spouse, with a child, somebody who qualifies as a dependent, they earn $18.36 for their monthly housing rate. That's supposed to include at least partial utilities, not much as well. And so E6 without dependents. So if it's just a solo service member without dependents, there's some more nuances to it, but that's a good basic start for understanding. So if they are PCSing to San Antonio, this is a good budget for working with. So again, if you're looking at working with more military clients in your area, I would look at the duty station, look at the zip codes around, see what their monthly allowance might be, and it'll give you an idea of, if someone's trying to leverage their VA benefit, 0 down loan, now 5% interest rate. Can you calculate how much with taxes, insurance in your area? What would a monthly budget look like for a military home under that budget? Again, some people spend more, some people spend a lot less. It just depends, but it'll give you an idea of like price points and neighborhoods that would work for that area. Let's look at Hawaii so we can see what I mean by cost of living adjustment. So 96816 is the zip code. And so we're in Honolulu. And so in E6, so you see the big difference, same rate with dependents, over 3,000, without dependents, 2,400. And then let's look at if they get a PCS to Shaw Air Force Base. And the reason I'm showing you the 3 different ones, if you have a client that buys a house in Honolulu, Because I know somebody mentioned they're moving to Hawaii. You want to make sure that the rent will cover that price point when they leave, in case they can't sell it. Because if they then get orders from Honolulu and now they're PCSing to Shaw Air Force Base, where their BAH just dropped to $1,300 a month, and they don't have renters, they can't sell that property, they have a huge house payment on that property in Honolulu, and now you put them in a very financially strapped position. So we want to make sure that we're taking care of our military families on the front end, so that they know what they're looking at, whether they're likely to sell, whether they're going to be able to rent it out if they really need to, because to cover that a note for $3,000 a month, and they're now only making $1,300 a month, and they have their new house as well because they can't stay in the previous house. Those are just some things to be prepared for there. How's the mortgage payment determined? If the VA puts 0% down, you've got some good in-depth questions, Claudia. So I can definitely get back to that after. If you don't have a VA lender, I'm gonna shoot an email out to everyone within about 24 hours with the link to this recording, as soon as I get a copy of it. And so then any other more in-depth questions like that, you'll have my email. Feel free to answer. Absolutely. And I'm happy to connect you guys with any VA lenders as well that don't charge origination or interest or lender fees or anything too. So let me switch back to my other slides. Thank you, Graham. Yeah, we cover, so the VA loan is something that's really important. We go into it in depth in two of the 12 classes, just to make sure that we're covering it. It's a lot. Canadian website equivalent. That's a great question, Stacy. I'm not familiar with a Canadian website equivalent for basic allowance for housing. I do have someone I can ask though. Oh, Amy's got it. Thank you, ma'am. All right. So let me see. Oh, in some bases, they do include utilities. Some don't. It really depends on the base. All right. I'll call the CO, the commanding officer, if those clients don't pay rent. Myth or not, the commander cares if your tenant who's in his command pays his rent. Anyone?
That is 100% true.
Ooh,
You can report them for not paying their rent, and they will get disciplined at work, and then they will start docking their pay. That is 100% true.
What base was that at?
I mean, that was up in Washington State.
Washington?
But it doesn't matter. It's nationwide. It is nationwide. They don't like to advertise that, but it is true. If you tell their commanding officer that they're not paying their bills, like that goes for anything, a credit card, you name it. If they find out you're not paying your bills, they will get disciplined at work until they get caught up.
What branch is that with?
That was everybody. I had a grandfather who was a Marine. I was married to the Army. We've had my brother-in-law was Air Force, and yeah, every single one of them.
It happens with the Air Force too.
In the Air Force?
If you get reported, yeah.
So, oh, somebody's got their phone. Gonna leave the client. What do we got? All right. So, in most cases, that is true, and it's not a fail-safe.
Amy, your thing's on.
It's not a fail-safe. So from interviewing dozens and dozens of property managers through Military by Owner, one of the resounding responses that we got from them is when they went to the COs, the typical response that they got was that they did not want to be involved in civilian matters, and they encouraged them to take the case up in civilian court. So though it is a practice on most duty stations and in many units, not every CO will necessarily take that responsibility. So it's not necessarily a fail-safe. This will absolutely happen because it really comes down to whether or not the CO will support that. So that's
actually, if you go higher up above, depending on what level you go to, a lot of the officers will get involved. So if you go, like, let's say you're just going to, like, if you call up the sergeant major and say, hey, this is what's going on with this house and somebody in your command, they will 100% get involved. Now, if you're talking about a private first class going and you're going to just the sergeant, then no, a lot of them don't want to get involved. But I'm telling you right now, if you call up the sergeant major, yes, they will 100% get involved because they do not want that black mark on them and their unit.
And part of
I was gonna say, I was prior military. I was in the Air Force. Like I was both on the enlisted side, like I was the lower, then up into the sergeant, all that kind of stuff. What kind of happens is, especially in a base that a lot of people don't PCS around, like myself, I was stuck at one base for almost all my time. They kind of go to, like, especially if it's a small town, the people that own the properties there, they'll talk to the commanders, or they'll talk to a sergeant or somebody that a higher level up, something like that. And then that just goes down the line. So then whenever you're the person that's got the troops below you, usually you're told by somebody else above you saying, hey, I heard from one of your troops, they're making a bad name for us in the community because they're not paying their bills. And then it just rolls downhill until it gets to you. And then you found out your commander, who you were actually trying to impress, like, oh, wait a second. No, that's never going to happen. So it's big, especially in the smaller community bases.
They're playing golf with the leadership in the local community. That makes a big difference.
Well, it's not even that. It also shows you as irresponsible. Think about it.
That's what it is. It's saying, how can you handle military matters if you're an irresponsible person?
Yeah. Ding, ding, ding.
So
I love that you guys have so much experience with this in particular. So when you escalate, that can make a big, huge difference. When it comes down to the individual CO, if you're not running it up the chain, that can be really hard. And especially if you're a military family and you don't have a property manager, so you don't have any boots on the ground, you don't have the capacity, you're deployed, you're trying to manage your property yourself. This is where you can run into a huge financial burden for your family. If you're renting to someone that you trust, will actually pay their rent on time, and you don't have anybody else there to support you. And now you've just got this huge undue burden of escalating it up the chain there. So one of the things that we typically do is whenever our clients are PCSing, we don't handle any property management here. We will then connect them with property managers. We try to find as well other folks that are veterans or military who understand, I might not be able to get a hold of the homeowner, within a 24-hour period to get an answer on something. And then as well, when they're leaving a previous duty station, we're encouraging them to connect with property managers too, so they have that additional support, especially with relationships. I can't remember who had said having the relationships in the local communities too can make a big difference. If you're not paying your bills as a military member, if you have a certain percentage of debt and you're trying to requalify for your security clearance, this can now have a big impact on your ability to requalify for that every few years. All right. Now, family saying just move, or friends saying just move near me next. Myth or not, you can pick your next assignment or duty station. Susan's laughing.
And it depends on what your qualifications and what you're doing. And that's not.
I mean, you can pick your top 5.
Yep.
I mean, you can put it into your top 5, but that's about it.
You can pick your top 5. So, and it's whether or not the military looks at it. That really depends on the needs of the military. So some military members can, depending on their job. There's some hot job lists where careers in high demand might offer positions. We had friends on the hot job list who were able to go to Norway and others to Germany and all sorts of cool places. Not necessarily all the case. You got to wait for the benevolent career overlords in the military to determine where you'll necessarily move. And in many cases, you'll hear from a client, military client, who might say they're PCSing to your area and it's 6 months out, and then they get a last minute change of orders. And you think, oh, were you joking? Were you pretending? No, not necessarily. They might have had orders to, your city, and then the needs of the military means that they are moved somewhere else last minute. We were about to put our car on the boat to send it off to Okinawa, and poor Chuck, my husband, got pulled for Pentagon duty the last minute. You're so close to going over there. And so that, and you'll hear that from so many other military families as well. Amanda, we've got, Jenna, can you grab their email? Okay, and we are down to our last 2 slides here. So must be nice to get a secure pension. Myth or not, service members have it easy, only 20 years on the job, and there's a cushy pension at the end. So 83% of military members have not stayed in the military for 20 years to receive the normal retirement benefits. Less than 17% of enlisted service members do hit 20 years in service. And when they do, they're only receiving a portion of their base pay. So that BH we talked about is not necessarily included in the retirement package. So typically insufficient to live on. A little over a third of officers retire at the 20-year mark. And officers make up less than 20% of the active duty population. So it's quite a small amount that actually do. And then in the last 10 years, there's a new retirement system that's completely changed. I'm not as familiar with how that one works, but they provide some form of retirement where you have like matching TSP contributions. So you're it's like a pension, or 401k is really the closest equivalent, which has been great for military families, because typically when military families hit the 10-year mark, there's almost golden handcuffs on them to stay in to get that pension at the 20-year mark. So big change. I do have a link to share with you guys for that too. So I will send that out in just a minute. Guard members do get even less. And so then we'll get to, I'll never work with my military sellers again. Myth or not, once you sell that military client's home, that's it. Delete them from your CRM. You'll probably never see them again. No. Okay. Yes. So they might be back. So you'll have a client. We had a client in 2017. We helped them buy. They sold in 2020. We referred them to an awesome military expert like yourselves. And then they are now PCSing. They've got notification they'll be back here in the winter. So they're buying. And in the meantime, because we kept in touch with them, we stayed connected with them. They sent us a couple of other clients who they knew were PCSing into town as well. The military community is really large, 18 million people. It's also a small, tight-knit community that relies very heavily on working with people that they trust as they transfer from one duty station to another. So the community, the concept of community is not just the hyper-local area that you live in. It is a large, nationwide, global, almost, community of military families. And agents who operate with or work with the military community, they operate very similarly. So I have relationships with agents from all over the country who I feel like I know from working with them, because we've sent so many referrals back and forth. I know how they work with their clients. I know how happy their clients are. And so even though I've never met these agents in person, the internet and phone are a wonderful thing. So if you are interested in learning more, if today was valuable, some of the other things that you can learn through MAPS, the fast track class, the next one starts July 26th. It's a 12-week class, 1 hour a week. We also have a weekly office hour where we mastermind. We go through some of the activities, build your military referral partners, very action oriented. This is the class that I teach. I'm offering monthly webinars as well. So covering different topics. Some months I'll cover how to build your military referral network, because that's something that I've focused pretty heavily on. Sign up for those when you see them. Those are free. Share them. Breakthrough coaching. There are some coaches who focus on working with military community, both for breakthrough and mastery. Breakthrough is twice a month coaching, where you learn Keller Williams models, you learn how to track your numbers. Ideal for new agents up to $5 million producers. And then mastery is 4 times a month. Ideal for $5 million plus producers, includes group coaching calls, tickets to family reunion, mega camp, and all that kind of good stuff. If you've got questions about those, I've got my email information in here, and I will post my email here in the chat as well. So we are right at the bottom of the hour. Does anyone have any questions? Y'all are a quiet bunch today. Is it because it's Thursday and the week is winding down? I appreciate you guys' participation throughout the class today. Awesome. Well, what I will do is I will follow up Thanks, Jennifer. What I'll do is I'll follow up here within about 24 hours. You guys have my email. If you have any other questions, please do not hesitate to reach out. I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for hopping on, investing this time in yourself to take care of military clients.
Thank you.
Thanks,
My
Karina.
pleasure.
Thanks everybody for coming.
Thanks, Graham.
Thank you.